Well, I guess everybody's going to be talking about Bray Wyatt over the next couple of days, if not in the next couple of hours. Because basically, reports have been coming out, basically, as to why he was let go. Now, according to upper management at WWE, via some sources and everything, members of upper management, which a lot of people like JD from NY206 are perceiving to be Bruce Prichard and John Laurinaitis, basically felt that Bray deserved to be fired because they used as an example that, hey, if you had this guy on your payroll with the attitude that he had, you would feel that he deserves to be let go as well. That was basically the example they gave as to, why he was released from his contract. Now, Bray basically said that, he heard their side of the things, or we heard their side of things, and that, soon he'll be sharing his side of things. And, I can't honestly think of a time when a shoot interview, a tell-all, BTS, behind the scenes, interview was looked forward to, more than, let's say, or more, or just as much than, when CM Punk finally opened up about why he, was fired from WWE, or why he finally parted ways with WWE. I can't think of another one, outside of that fans have been anticipating, but obviously this is one of them. And I can tell you, once Wyndham Rotundo, that's his real name, comes out and tells the truth from his perspective as to what happened, if I'm WWE and I want to prevent that from potentially happening, knowing that this could paint us in a dark light like CM Punk's thing did, because obviously when CM Punk, finally did his shoot, if you will, finally did his tell-all expose on WWE, they changed. They changed a lot to where it's like, okay, we can't ignore this kind of stuff anymore, and people are going to use this against us, so we need to change and make ourselves look better, kind of counteract what he's saying. If I'm WWE and I don't want this to happen, then I'm basically, going to Wyndham and I'm saying, hey, Wyndham, we thought about what we did and it was wrong for us to do what we did, and we want you to come back and we're going to give you all the creative freedom you want. We're going to make you an unstoppable monster, and you know what, we'll put you on Fox, and we'll have you make your return at the Rumble and win it, and then we'll have you challenge Roman to whatever match you want at Mania. We'll have you squash Roman like you should have squashed Randy last year, and then that way, and then afterwards you're going on an undefeated run as Universal Champ, and even Roman will not want to challenge you because in story we'll make him so scared that he'll give up being the tribal chief and he'll go back to being the big dog. That's obviously, in my opinion, what WWE should do if they don't want Wyndham to basically expose them for what he dealt with behind the scenes. And again, like I said, I can't think of another tell-all expose, shoot interview that fans have been looking for more forward to in recent memory, when it comes to WWE parting ways with somebody, than with the whole CM Punk thing that happened a few years ago to coincide with that. But it appears, that Wyndham, his story is just beginning. Like, we're getting the foundations right now of, potentially an idea of what we're in store for come that moment when it happens, that tell-all expose. And the reason for that is I want to give credit to Just Alyx, and Just Alyx is going to be doing his own video. In fact, I think his own live stream very soon. In fact, let me see what the time frame is. He's going to be doing his in the next 57 minutes, which right now is 3:17 Pacific time, 3:17 p.m. Pacific time. So in 57 minutes, he'll be doing his own, which is around 4:15, if you will. But this is courtesy of FightfulSelect.com and Sean Ross Sapp. And Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful are known to be very reliable, along with PW Insider and some other places as well. And this is what Sean Ross Sapp had to say, courtesy of Fightful.com, and I quote, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com is reporting that according to sources within WWE, there is a belief that Vince no longer liked Bray Wyatt, with Wyatt being outspoken about creative... Okay, let me reread that. And I quote. Let me reread that. This is courtesy of Fightful Select, and I quote. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com is reporting that according to sources within WWE, there is a belief, keyword there, that Vince no longer liked Bray Wyatt, with Wyatt being outspoken about creative possibly being a factor. Regarding The Fiend versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 37, people involved in the match were said to be unhappy with the creative direction, and Fightful had been told that there was never a true creative endgame for that story. So, what we're getting here is they're just saying, yeah, that whole Randy Orton, Fiend, Bray Wyatt feud we had everybody watch and get invested in, yeah, we didn't really have an end game. We didn't have a resolution to that because I think, once again, just like they've done before, they pair up two individuals that you do not want to pair up in any kind of wrestling promotion, period, that you do not want to look weak. And in this case, Randy Orton and The Fiend are prime examples of that. So basically, because of that, they had no end game as to who would come out on top. Even though it was clear as day, to everybody that The Fiend, and obviously it was leaning towards this, should have basically squashed Randy Orton at WrestleMania 37 instead of what we got with Alexa Bliss, costing The Fiend the match. But that's basically the situation there. That's basically the answer. And continuing on, I quote, Fightful Select noted that there was also creative issues regarding the burned Fiend costume. And let me see, trying to make sure, because it changes basically. It changes basically from one section to another, but let's see. And I quote, and I think this is from Fightful Select. This is from Fightful Select, and I quote, creative was also told by... Oh, okay, let me reread that. Let me restart. And I quote, creative was also told about some major frustration around the burned Fiend angle, specifically the size, weight, and movement of the suit. Though Wyatt hasn't confirmed this himself, the creative team was told that he believed it was too heavy, was going to look bad, and would be difficult to move inside it, so it was scrapped. On a related note, tattoo artist Kyle A. Schallenberg revealed concept art for the burned Fiend, and that's been going around. Continuing on, I quote, the 2-hour deadline burnt Fiend concept, major rush job, but out of my control, wanted to show... Okay, this is where somebody else is talking. So, this is all still FightfulSelect.com, but this is the tattoo artist Kyle A. Schallenberg, who revealed concept art of the burned Fiend. And this is what Kyle said, and I quote, the 2-hour deadline burnt Fiend concept. Major rush job, but out of my control. Wanted to show exposed skull and dripping flesh. I was giving the impression my concept was used when it wasn't. But that's a whole other story for a later time. For the record, I liked what was used fine. The mask built was great, though I do think the design was a bit flat. Design came from the in-house people apparently. Either way, the blame was placed on Brother Love, Bruce Prichard, so if you liked it, blame him. Or I'm guessing he means, so if you didn't like it, blame him. So yeah, basically the design of the burned Fiend costume was to be different than what we saw. And the reason it was not what was originally pitched or originally designed with the exposed skull and dripping flesh was because of Bruce Prichard. Oh, Alyx. Oh, JD. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. Oh, TRS Central, my friend. Compadre. Mi amigo. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say either. Oh, love this. Oh, this is good. Okay, continuing on, I quote, we're getting back into Fightful here. During an appearance on the Ring of Wrestling podcast, former writer Freddie Prinze Jr., who's also an actor, talked about Bray Wyatt's departure from WWE and what possibly went wrong. Prinze Jr. indicated that Wyatt had creative issues with Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn. Okay, Vince McMahon, understandable. Kevin Dunn and Bruce Prichard? Gee, who's to blame out of those two the most? Or that three the most? Again, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I love it. I love it. I cannot wait for Alyx, for JD, for OTR Central, for anybody to come out and say, are you, excuse my language, God, but I cannot wait for them to go like, are you fucking kidding me? I cannot wait to see this because you know what? Because you know what? If anybody that I watch and respect here on YouTube as far as wrestling podcasts go, and, you know, YouTube or YWCs go, these three to me have the most validation to be very outspoken after reading something like this. Because I can tell you honestly, oh my Lord, if you didn't like Bruce now, if you felt Bruce needed to be fired now, if you felt Kevin Dunn needed to be fired now, and you felt Vince needed to step down immediately, yeah, this is pretty much a good indication that you know, that feeling is going to definitely grow more so, especially with Dunn and Prichard. After this, I guarantee you, people are going to be petitioning, they're going to be emailing, they're going to be doing everything. And basically, I would not be surprised if Prichard and Dunn do finally say, hey, we resign, bye-bye. I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of pressure is going to come on about this. They're going to be like, I can see Kevin Dunn be like, Vince, here's my resignation. I'm going to go retire now. Bye-bye. You know, right away. And Bruce will be like, you know, Vince, I just got a call from Anthem Sports and Impact Wrestling. They offered me more money, so here's my notice. Goodbye. You know, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if this happens. Now, I could be wrong, but if this is just the foundation of what Bray's going to be saying, what Wyndham's going to be saying. Oh, woo! Continuing on. Now, this is what I quote, what Freddie Prinze Jr. Had to say on the Ring of Wrestling podcast. This is what they quote Freddie Prinze Jr. and I quote what he said on the Ring of Wrestling podcast. This is Freddie Prinze Jr. I can't tell you everything I know. I know Bray. I wouldn't say we're friends, but we're acquaintances. But I still have friends at the company. Like I said earlier, if you're willing to work a Pacific way, even if you had a bad match, in the eyes of the top two dudes at the company, it's a good match because you're doing business their way. If you're wanting to step out of line, if you're wanting to step out of that lane and widen your river, or just show there's some other streams, even if you have a great match, it's just a good match. And when you stick to your guns time and time again, they're going to stick to theirs. Look, Vince is a product of the 80s. It's Reaganomics. It's called Reaganomics. It's Reaganomics. When there's problems, he throws money at it. It's an old school way of thinking. It sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. But there are men that will double down. Him and Kevin, and for better or worse, they will always double down. Continuing on, I quote, I don't think Bray had good enough... Okay, and let me reread that, and I quote, I don't think Bray had a good enough hand to play poker with them in that game. And that's why he lost the first time in a weird way in Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia. And that's why things kind of went south from there. His segments were suffering, his performance wasn't suffering. I just think if you're not willing to play ball, then they will let you know. Hey, you're not trying to play ball. We're not going to help you. Oh, okay. He's quoting. Freddie Prinze Jr. is quoting like Vince and Kevin here. Let me reread that. And I quote: his segments weren't suffering. His performance wasn't suffering. I think if you're not willing to play ball, then they let you. Okay. Okay, then they let you know. And this is him quoting them, and I quote. This is Freddie Prinze Jr. quoting what, Vince and Kevin would say. Hey, and I quote, "Hey, you're not trying to play a ball. We're not going to help you out. We gave you the platform, and you're not using it the way we want you to use it. And it's business, you can understand that." And these are quotes courtesy of Cultureholic.com, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s appearance, on the Ring of Wrestling podcast. But yeah, the gist I'm getting out of this is apparently Bray wanted to go one way with the Fiend, which was obviously for a while was, working and obviously was the best direction to go. But as soon as Bruce and Vince and Kevin got a hold of it or got their hands into it, as even JD mentioned in his OTS extra today, even as he mentioned, as soon as they got their hands in it, they wanted to go another way. And it just didn't work. I mean, the fact that they're describing here, the tattoo artist Kyle is describing the fact that, he wanted to show that with the burnt Fiend thing, the concept, that the original concept was to show exposed skull and dripping fresh. The fact that he wanted to go with that and he had the impression they were going to go with it, but then they went in another direction that was similar to what he wanted, but not really, and it was all because of Bruce? Again, this kind of stuff does not make Bruce Prichard, Kevin Dunn, or even Vince McMahon look good in a good light. I mean, if you're going to say, "Hey, Bray, we're going to let you do it this way. We're going to give you a little bit of creative freedom and stuff," which we got to admit they kind of did at first, then you need to stick to your guns. I mean, he says it there. Freddie Prinze Jr. is quoted saying it there, that once they stick to the guns, they will double down on it. Well, you know what, Vince, Bruce, Kevin, I think everybody from JD to just Alyx to OTR Central to Bill Apter to everybody around will pretty much agree that, hey, if you wanted to, if you were serious about giving Bray that creative freedom and letting him do what he wanted, then double down on that. Don't backtrack on it and say, "Oh, we want to go in another direction," because you feel a different way. And I'm always thinking, obviously Vince has grandkids. We know that Kevin Dunn has to have grandkids, and Bruce maybe surprisingly has grandkids. So who's to say maybe their daughters or the wives said, "Hey, this Fiend character is scaring our kids, get rid of it," if that didn't play a factor? I don't know. I mean, I understand they're trying to say, "Hey, we're a family show, we're a family product," but sometimes even family, products, movies, shows, sometimes they take scary risks. They go in directions that might be a little risky and scary and horrific, but still present themselves as a family product. The thing is, none of this had to happen the way it did. If Vince and Kevin and Bruce would have been like, "Look, let's stick to our guns. Let's let Bray, Wyndham have the creative freedom we promised and see what happens." And if something did go askew, that even Bray couldn't, fix or anything, then that's when you step in. Because if somebody that you gave the creative freedom to, makes a screw up or something that's even beyond their control, then that's when you step in. You do not step in if it's working perfectly, if it's a success and there's nothing going on. But I think Freddie said it best here. I think he said it best here. That essentially, Vince here is a product of the 80s. It's Reaganomics. When there's a problem, he throws money at it. It's an old school way of thinking. It sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't, but the men that will double down on him and Kevin Dunn, for better or for worse, they will always double down. So in other words, Vince, he still has that mentality of the 80s, like, "Oh, Bray, I'm so sorry you're mad. Here, have $1 million more. That'll make you happy. Here you go, $1 million more into your contract. There you go. Go have fun now. Bye-bye." That's his mentality. And it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't. I mean, yes. Freddie's right. I mean, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But actuality, it doesn't work as much as it used to. Especially in a business like pro wrestling, sports entertainment, where creative is an essential. It's a major essential. And those having that creative mindset should be given that freedom to make it a huge essential to not just their character, but to whoever they're involved in or with. That's a key thing there. That money can't, change a difference. And in this case with Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotundo's Fiend deal, you can't just keep throwing money at it. Sooner or later, someone's going to step up to Vince in that company and a Dunn and a Bruce and say, hello? Hello? Anybody in there? Anybody from 1985 still in there that wants to come forward 36 years later? Hello? Anybody want to be pulled out of that time warp? It's like, that is what's going to happen. Someone's going to knock them upside their head. Not literally, but figuratively. And then and if that happens, hopefully Bruce, Kevin, and Vince will be like, oops, we made a screw up. But again, if you want any more reasoning as to why people want Bruce Prichard out, why they want Kevin Dunn out, outside of Vince stepping down, this here is a good example of that. That there is a good example of that. And that to me is just the foundation. It is just the foundation of what Bray's going to probably expose and talk about when he gets the opportunity. Again, like I said at the beginning, I can't think of a time, more of a time basically that a tell-all expose shoot interview was looked forward to more so than when CM Punk did his. And you can't tell me that Chris Jericho's not going to jump upon that, because he will. But yeah, this does not paint WWE in a good light. This does not paint WWE in a good light. I mean, if you're going to trust people, you're going to trust them to go out there and basically say what they want to say. Basically, have that creative freedom to, be the way they want, and say what they want, maybe with a few bullet points here and there, then you need to trust that person. I mean, what are you afraid they're going to do? Are you afraid they're going to come out and say, hey, everybody, I just want you to let you know that before I start this match, I want to advertise that I got a good friend at AEW. You guys should check out this Wednesday night on Dynamite on TNT. Is that what you're afraid of? Is that what they're afraid of? Well, you know what? Maybe that's a bullet point they need to give. Maybe they need to tell them, look, go out there, say what you need to do, say these kind of things, or, basically say, talk about these things here as best you can, but please, here's the major bullet point, do not mention AEW. Do not mention Impact. Because to us, they don't exist. They don't exist. So, this here, oh, I cannot wait to hear what Just Alyx has to say. I cannot wait to hear what JD has to say. I cannot wait to hear what OTR has to say. I cannot wait to hear what the Solo Monster has to say. Woo! Woo-hoo! I mean, honestly, WWE, Kevin Dunn, Bruce Prichard, Vince, what are you guys doing? You want to succeed? You want people to choose you over AEW? Look at what they're doing at AEW and do it 10 times better. Let the men and women have their creative freedom. Give them bullet points, but let them have that creative freedom. Let them compete in the kind of matches they want to compete in the styles they want to compete in. And I guarantee you, what's going to happen here with Wyndham, when he does the tell-all expose, will never happen again. And if I am you and I don't want that to come out, what he's about to say, I go to him, I offer to pay him all this money to bring him back. I promise him, I put it in the contract that he has all the creative freedom he wants. He can have any kind of match he wants. I even say he's going to go over in the Rumble match, let him win that, and then have him, probably after the Rumble match, announce he's going to challenge Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and then you give him any match he wants to compete in, you have him say he's going to challenge Roman Reigns to let's say a barbed wire match. A barbed wire match. And then afterwards, you put the belt on him. You let him have a long reign. And then, in story-wise, you basically cause Roman to regress back to being the big dog. Because now he realizes, hey, I'm not going to be a tribal chief anymore because I'm scared of this dude. And I'm not wanting to face him. I don't want to be on the same brand as him. I want out. So, and again, that's just me thinking that's just my opinion what WWE should do. But WWE. You know, things, it's like for every good you do, something bad comes your way. For every positive you do, something negative comes your way. I mean, yesterday everybody says that, you know, they had a decent Raw for 3 hours. And that's a good. That's a positive. But obviously with the good and the positive comes some bad and negative. And guess what? This is a bad and a negative. And this is just the start. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of, you know, of basically that tremendous downpour that's coming courtesy of Wyndham Rotundo. But what do you guys think? Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, which hopefully you have. Like the video, check out my Teespring store, check me out at BW Rose's Discussions on all your favorite audio podcast locations, except for Pandora. Also check me out at BW Roses on Vimeo, check me out at my Venmo, as well as also check me out at Patreon at BW Roses. And I will talk to you all later. Also check out Just Alyx's video when it goes up live in about, what is it? In about 36 minutes. By the time you watch this, it should already be up. But yeah, tune into it. I think you'll get a kick out of it. So till next time, guys, I'm out.